Inside this room, all of my dreams become realities, and some of my realities become dreams.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here? Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
You are listening to The Wilder Ride, getting wilder by the minute. Here are your hosts, Alan Sanders and Walt Murray.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Wilder Ride Listeners Lounge, a podcast, a sidecast really to our main cast, where instead of looking at a movie 1 minute at a time, we look at a guest's life 1 moment at a time. I'm your host, I'm Alan Sanders.
I am your co-host, Walt Murray.
Walt, I got to tell you today, going to this morning to work, this is that time of year, at least in the Southeast, those big brown looking spiders like to build their nests right at dusk. And they're there all night long. And usually by morning, they take them down, go play hide and seek somewhere, and then come back the following night. Unless you get up earlier than when they take their webs down. I found one this morning taking the dogs out. It was fun.
Was it one of those that's like the size of your fist? And
well, it feels that way when it's about 1/4 of an inch from your face and you run right through the web. Yes, it feels like massive. I did the whole thing where if anybody on their Ring cameras was looking, I was doing some really half-assed kung fu karate moves, trying to figure out how to get all the webs out of my hair and make sure I didn't have a spider crawling on the inside of my shirt. My dog's looking at me like, what's dad doing? You know, he's weird.
I'm so disappointed that none of your neighbors have posted that on the radio station Facebook page yet. I would really love to see that.
Next Door, or what's the social media website for subdivision?
Oh yeah. Next Door. That would be great.
If you see this man, lock your doors and windows. We're not sure what he's on.
We have a lunatic in our neighborhood.
Something's going on. It was like, you know how when you swat at bees and things, you see them, you hear them, but nobody knows what it is that you're swatting at. It was just like that.
Yes. I used to run a lot, and I was jogging one night in the dark, and there was like you know how they'll cut the roads to repave them. And so you'll have like a 6-inch step down.
Yeah.
So I'm running with a buddy of mine one night, and I'm running along. And then wham, I like fall 6 inches. I looked like I had lost my mind, and he was laughing so hard he couldn't keep running. So it's that same feeling of I'm a total idiot.
Yeah. The only saving grace was at 5 o'clock in the morning. I honestly don't believe anybody saw me, but had they, boy,
man,
nice.
I'm really disappointed that nobody has video of that.
Then I'm in the car and I'm convinced everything I'm feeling is the spider has actually crawled in somewhere, and I've got my mind's playing tricks on me. Now, I'm not a big spider. I don't suffer from arachnophobia, but you still don't want a spider necessarily crawling on you.
Oh yeah, no. But once you've done something like that, you can't get it out of your head.
Right. I kept feeling like, is it on my neck? And I think because I had maybe a strand of web that every now and then was in the car, it would like drop down, touch my neck, and then I'd move and it would go fly up and then it would come back down. I'm like, what's going on? I just want to go to the radio and do my morning shift and be done. Anyway, that was my morning today.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, yeah, a couple of weeks ago, I got into an ant mound cutting grass. And even after I had taken a shower and changed clothes, and there's no way any ants were on me, I kept thinking, oh my gosh, the ants. It was like being on acid or something. I just could not get that out of my head.
Well, you know, we actually just had a chance to do a special episode last week, which I think has gotten some pretty favorable reviews. Yeah. And since then, my brother and I did come back from that. I didn't realize it was worldwide. I knew it was across the country, but the group Rush did their Cinema Strangiato in movie theaters across the country. And I found out across the world. I'm part of a Rush kind of a fan group on Facebook. Yeah. And the number of people that just all sort of collectively went to go watch live concert footage cut together with some funny shorts and some things that they produced together. I had a blast going to see that concert, one that I didn't get to see live before the passing of Neil Peart.
Yeah, I was going to ask how that was. I don't think we've chatted back and forth, but I don't think we've talked about that yet since you went and saw it. How was it?
It was fantastic. It was their R40 tour, and they filmed it in multiple cities and then cut it all together. So you got a sense of seeing what it was like for all these different venues. And they had cameras right behind the stage. They had these little guided robots with some HD cams kind of scrolling across the front of the stage. You saw a guy with a big Steadicam rig behind. it was just cool because you were getting shots you would never even see, even if you were in the front row.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, and I think our show that we did last week, where we sort of just did our tribute to Rush about when we first heard our first Rush song and what album or what concert or what stuck with us. We've gotten a lot of feedback on our Facebook group about, people's first albums and what they liked. So we may have to do another formatted show, or instead of talking to a guest, we talk about something similar, maybe our favorite war movies or our favorite sitcoms or whatever, something other than maybe a guest. Although I love the guests, honestly.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I've had a couple of people text me and just say how much they enjoyed it. And they were like, but you didn't talk about this. I'm like, yeah, but we only had a certain amount of time.
At some point, you have 2 hours to talk about a group that's been together 40 plus years. You can only cover so much.
We've been listening to since day one. So yeah, so that was a great episode. I really enjoyed that. And before we go to our guests, there's one other thing that I wanted to mention. I don't even know if you have seen this yet, because I know you've been busy, but Norm Mcdonald passed away today.
As of this recording, it was the hot news today.
Yeah. And
didn't realize it was from what I read headline wise, his sort of private battle with cancer.
Yes. And he had not told anybody. I mean, I talked to my friend who was on the Saturday Night Live writing crew, and she did not know. None of her friends knew. And, we had Steve on last year, who was Norm's assistant and head writer, I guess. And I guess he probably knew, but not many other people did. So
he never relayed.
He never let on. No. So, but Norm, of course, Saturday Night Live, so many other things. He had his own show, and just a comic master.
Yeah.
And really sad to see him pass.
Deadpan, dry, sarcastic humor I could very much gravitate toward, because I think that's me.
Yeah,
very much that way.
I can relate to that humor. And he also had a talk show on Netflix last year. Did one season, I guess, they filmed it in 2019, I believe, and it dropped last year. So that's definitely one I'm going to have to revisit this week. But excellent show. He did a great job interviewing people. It's kind of a Carson style interview. But I did not want to miss the opportunity to just mention that. And he just is one of those inspiring comics who was a master at his craft. And it's really sad to see him pass away.
Anybody with a talent like that, you just sort of feel it. Even if you don't know them directly, you kind of feel like know them because they've been part of your life. You may not know everything about their behind the scenes or personal, but they're still a part of your tapestry of experience because they've been part of it.
Yes, absolutely. So,
you know what? One of the things that's been part of our tapestry as far as a universe goes, I think you and I both would fall in that camp of being big time Star Wars fans. Remember being what it was like in the theater. I remember when I was 6 years old when I saw it. I saw it in the theater. The first, they didn't even call it A New Hope because it was just Star Wars, And I'll never forget my mom and a friend of hers, because she had 2 kids, about my brothers and I, same age. And I remember them discussing, did you see the pictures in the paper? They've got like these swords that glow and it might be a little scary. Should we bring the kids? I'm like, it's a science fiction. It's for kids. Like, okay, so that was my mom and dad's view of all science fiction. Well, science fiction. That's kids stuff. We watch real drama, but that's not. So I remember being in the theater and blown away.
Yeah, I saw it the second or third week it was out, and I was 10 years old. And I mean, it is hard to explain what it was like, because it just totally blew my mind and totally changed the way that I looked at entertainment.
It was one of those things where I think informed so much of what I like to watch, what I like to read, how I like to write when I've directed, the way I approach camera movement. I feel like that is part of what helped form some of my background, was always looking back to how I felt being transported to that galaxy far, far away.
Yeah. And I know that we've had our disappointments along the way from time to time, but for the most part, that universe is one that I have just enjoyed. Every single time a movie has been coming out, I've had just immense expectations of this is going to be incredible. It's going to be like the first one. I've been let down a couple of times, but this last year, Disney Plus did us a huge favor by releasing The Mandalorian.
I was going to say not just the year, but seasons 1 and 2.
Yep, that's right.
Completely brought me back anyway to a sense that there was this wide, vast galaxy, that there were other stories taking place, and yet a sense of familiarity with the costuming, the setting, the feel of that world.
Yes. And I know when they first announced it, you and I had kind of talked, and we had talked to our friend BK on the radio a little bit about, okay, we're trying not to get our expectations too high. We're hoping it's going to be good. And then when we all saw the first episode, we were like, holy crap, it's back.
It certainly felt like they were scratching the surface. I think I was probably the most dubious of the three of us, simply because I'm like, okay, you can put a lot into a pilot. You can put a lot into a first episode. Can you sustain? Not only can I tell you that they sustained, they built a world in 2 seasons that I cannot wait to go back to.
Well, and it just got better and better as it went. And so we're so privileged to actually be able to be super nerds tonight. Yes. And talk about Star Wars for a while, along with some other stuff. But before we introduce our guest, I just want to say Amanda Raymond, who we had as a guest not long ago, is 100% responsible for our guest tonight. She hooked us up, and we really a huge shout out to her. Thank you so much, Amanda, for making this possible. But Alan, you're going to introduce our guest.
I shall. In fact, let us do that, folks. I need you to put your hands together as we bring to stage someone who maybe you know the catchphrase, I have spoken, although it wasn't her voice, it was her performing. Let's bring to the stage Misty Rosas. Misty, welcome to the Wilder Ride Listeners Lounge. How are you?
Yay, hi. I am great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You know, I thought for some reason that, you know, we watched, you know, Nick Nolte's voice coming out of this creature. And for some reason, I thought, well, it must be Nick Nolte under there. Turns out it wasn't.
Nope, it was me.
So but we got to touch on this first, and then we'll go back. How in the world did you get a gig where nobody gets to see what you look like and yet make such an impression on Star Wars nerds worldwide?
Oh, thank you. That means a lot to me. It's very kind. My very first professional job was with Disney, working at Disneyland and in a costume. My first job was Phantasmic in the original cast in Anaheim at Disneyland. So costume work has been part of my journey since the very beginning, since 18 years old. So, yeah. Wow. And Kuiil is that, you know, for me as well, it's just this like pinnacle moment of, oh my goodness, like when my agent sent my deal memo and I'm reading it and like I scrolled down to the end and it said Star Wars, I literally just like started crying. So it's like, oh my God, I've always wanted to be a part of Star Wars, and you know, it literally has been a dream come true moment.
So let me ask this because the character of Kuiil is, you know, one of the Ugnaughts, I guess, just a more advanced one, speaks English, but you had, in my mind, a mannerism and a feel of Nick Nolte. Did you get to work with him, or did you have any of the sound or dialogue to kind of mimic? Because I felt like I honest to God, felt it was Nick Nolte and they used CGI to shrink him down or something. I had no idea it was you.
No, I did not. I've yet to meet him. I'm really hoping to someday, really, to be honest, to simply say thank you to him. I believe that Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau went to him and they, you know, spent a day doing all of his dialogue tracks. And they would sometimes, if I was lucky, production would send the tracks to me the night before, what we were going to be shooting the following day. Sometimes I get them on the day. So my team from Legacy Effects and I, we would, do rehearsal at first thing in the morning with cast and crew and Dave and John and whoever was directing us. And then my team would be right there too, because we are a collective. So they needed to see blocking and kind of get a feel for the timing of the scenes too. And then after rehearsal, we would run over to the puppeteering rig and go over the dialogue. Fortunately, Mr. Nolte gave us options. We had the gift of 2 to 3 takes of each line. So in order to really kind of make it feel right for what the scene was. So then we would, one of the puppeteers who was on the rig with the computer, put those in place, and then we would go for it. So yeah, I never met him, but again, with Star Wars too, I know it sounds cliche, it's a feeling. It helped me that costume was extremely heavy because it just grounded me and it helped me with moving slower. But you can feel in the way that he would emote his lines and stuff, that just gave me a lot to work with. And it's just like anything as far as acting, it's really listening. And in my case with it, it's like listening and trying to simultaneously move with that with my puppeteers and the dialogue tracks. So it was complicated.
So, okay, with your rig that you were wearing, did you have to actually say the dialogue too, so they would have a matched mouth movement, or did they actually move the mouth and you just had to do the body?
Inside my costume, I wasn't saying it loudly. It's hard to explain. I talk it, but I don't say the words because it's an animatronic head. So my puppeteers, they had the, full range of the mouth movement, his eyebrows, and some extra mouth movement outside of, the dialogue as well. So, so I was saying it, I obviously knew what my dialogue was in order to really bring that forth with my physical movement as well, so that it would fuse and become seamless.
So how heavy was that costume?
I didn't weigh it because I didn't need to know, but it was very heavy. It was all of the animatronics and the motors and the board, the backpack that I wore, that was completely full of that. And I don't know how many wires. I'm guessing maybe 20 on each side behind my neck, connecting everything. So, yeah. And then the 2 pockets on either side of the costume, those were a solid, large rectangular battery. So, yeah, he was heavy.
Well, we hear these nightmare stories sometimes of different people who have to work within costumes like that. As you were doing that work, I mean, obviously you said that you come from a background where you've worked in a costume before. How was that compared to your other experience in costume? Was it easier, tougher? At the end of the day, were you just like, when is this going to end? I mean, how was it?
I never had thoughts of, God, is this ever going to end? But I will say I had one shoot day where, because I'm mentally tough, coming from my background as a gymnast, my entire childhood was gymnastics. And so there is a mental strength that I have. So much so that sometimes literally my physical body is just done and it comes out in tears that are like coming out of my eyes of literally the physical exhaustion, even though mentally I was like, you got to handle this, you've got to work today, handle it. And my poor team, Trevor is one of them. He kept on that day having to, reapply the makeup around my eyes, and I'm just apologizing. He's like, "It's okay, honey. We know you're tired. Just hang in there." I was like, "I know I'm trying. My body is just is having a moment." So, but to answer your question, it was difficult in the way that it was the first time for me and Legacy Effects to do this style of animatronic head with a suit performer and a puppeteer doing dialogue. I have worked with Legacy Effects before. We worked together on my very first film, which was Congo. And that is the gorilla artist's work. And of all of this suit performance work, that is definitely the most difficult and challenging because you're quadruped. So it just requires a tremendous amount of upper body strength, cardiovascular strength, because not only are you carrying the weight, but you're on your, arms, it's quadruped. So that's really, really intense. So
with, big heavy rigs, costumes, long shooting days, and feeling like you're in the Tatooine desert, how were you filming indoors with, so that way there was more climate controlled and then they made it feel like you were outside, or did you have to do some outdoor on location where it would get a lot hotter?
Fortunately for me, I only had 2 exteriors. My very first day of shooting, which was very exciting. We're so proud because the very first shot is just me and Mando. We're on the blurgs, and I'll just never forget that day. It was super early in the morning. I got there. Dave Filoni is our director, and he's always just wonderful and amazing energy and excited. Everybody was excited to be there. I mean, it's Star Wars. So, and yeah, it was a really heavy monologue scene for me. But it just went beautifully. I think we did maybe 3 to 5 takes, and then I was done for the day and they were moving on. So, before it got hotter, I was done, and it was October. So it was cooling down. And then the second exterior day, it had rained the night before. So we were dealing with a lot of mud, but it was still cool. And yeah, the heat didn't affect me as much as the weight of the costume. So.
All right. So you've got a background in gymnastics. Obviously, that is a lot about movement and control. My youngest daughter was a gymnast all the way through 11th grade and decided boys were more important to her than going to the gym 14 or 18 hours a week. And we were upset as parents because of all the money we put into it. But it did give her, and I think you, for what you're inferring, the sense of working hard as a team and being physically fit. So is that something you've been doing your whole life since gymnastics? Has that been sort of like the life lesson about staying fit and limber?
Yes. It gave me an opportunity to understand this career here in Los Angeles. It's challenging, and you have to train. You have to train as an actor. I train as a dancer. I train as a singer. And I also train within the physical fitness realm, doing F45, which is functional training for 45 minutes, as well as yoga, to keep my body strong and yet limber and healthy. And it requires you to be extremely disciplined because it's up to you, to keep this going, to keep the momentum going, to keep going to auditions and stuff when, as let's face it, and I included, you get a lot of no's. I have a little Post-it that reminds me all the time, 99 no's, before you get a yes. So
it is a tough business, obviously. And the thing is, it's kind of weird. It feels like for somebody like me that's been sort of dabbling and been in and around it my whole life, the advent of the technology of the internet, it sometimes makes it feel more prolific, like there's so much out there. But at the same time, it's still hard to be found. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. For most of us, you just stick with it, and you'll know that your trajectory is on the right path because you really do love it. You love it when you live in studio apartments, and you have a car that is hanging on by a thread. Like, I will never forget Amanda, your friend Amanda Raymond, writer, director, producer, who's a very close friend of mine. She cast me in her first short, and I didn't want to do it. Again, my comfort zone is this work. I know how to do this. I was trained in this and I've done it a long time, but to act outside of a costume and stuff to me was terrifying, even though I had like 3 lines. And she kept, at me. It's like, I don't want to ruin your movie. What if I mess it up? And she's like, you can do it. And it's just a supporting role. It's like, I know. And she won that battle. But I came over to help the day before the shoot. And, her and I have just been working at this and hustling so hard for so long. And my car at the time, I was going up the Sepulveda Pass and I had a Prius, and the giant red triangle light went on. And that's with the exclamation point in the middle. And I'm like, oh gosh, no, it's not happening right now. And so at the moment, it's like, please just let me get up the hill and down the hill and to the car dealership. But again, it's just all of those stories of all of the trials within the hustle of what you are trying for, to just do it because it's part of your journey. She actually had, of course, my car was broken. And so she had to Uber me from Santa Monica to North Hollywood, both days of the shoot. But from it, there's that little bug that I caught of, I really like this. I was really nervous and definitely butterflies in my stomach, but just constantly trying to battle and be courageous in the pursuit of this. And I must have whispered, it's like, I want to act more in things. And then a couple months later, I got the cold read audition for Kuiil. So she's a big part of that.
So let's go back a little bit between the time of gymnastics, which was early in your life, and you said you started getting involved in productions, Disney productions at Disneyland in Anaheim. When did you make, or were you kind of simultaneously, while being a gymnast, dabbled into body acting, or at least some kind of performance in front of a group other than a sporting event?
Yeah. After gymnastics, again, things kind of weaved in and out for a while. I went immediately to college, and dancing is a huge passion for me. I love it. My height, obviously, 5'2" is the bare minimum of short dancers in this town. I'm way below that. I'm 4'9". But in college, I auditioned for the dance production, and there I met a few of the dancers that were, from South Orange County, that were also Disneyland parade performers. And like, you're so tiny, why don't you audition for Disneyland? She was like, wait, what? That's a thing. So, at 18, I auditioned, and that was, again, my very first experience with, suit performance and creating these characters, their body language, their body movement. Obviously I move very differently in Donald Duck as I do in Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse and Daisy Duck. So that was the beginning. And it is because of my gymnastics career, the head coach that I trained with as an elite gymnast, Paramount Pictures, they called him as they were trying to find their Amy for Congo. And he called me and he's like, there's this movie audition, and I know you've done suit work and they're looking for gymnasts under 5 feet. I think you should go. And that was like a gigantic, fork in the road of, that's the direction I want to go. And I never looked back. So
you didn't really have a background in film. You sort of just kind of learned by showing up and saying, hey, I'm supposed to be in costume. I'm the monkey.
Right. Yeah. It was, everybody's like, did you love shooting on Congo? I was like, I did. But at the same time, it was extremely overwhelming because I didn't come from a theater background. I had not taken any courses in film or television production, being in front of the camera. So it was a crash course in learning how to, move, breathe, feel, and embody a gorilla, which again is not easy. I learned at that point as well to work blind, because in your animatronic heads, which are the hero head with the full face moving, you're blind in those heads. There's also a stunt head that you have a tiny bit of vision, but that was my first project of being trained by Peter Elliott and John Alexander, who are, experts at this type of performance. So I was really lucky. A small group of people that were taught by them, and we trained for 3 months. And again, it wasn't a big deal to me. The training schedule was extremely rigorous. The whole morning was dedicated to physical training. There's like a gym at Sony Pictures, and one team worked out there. Back at the stage, there was a circuit training, and the other team worked there, and we flip-flopped. And after that, the other half of the day was movement, acting. We also had to learn sign language. So it was a tremendous opportunity. And again, just this crash course in the film business.
Yeah, when you first hear things like back to one, you're like, what do you mean back to one?
Yep.
And in that animatronic head, you can't see what one is.
Yeah. So obviously, when in between takes, they open the mouth as wide as they can, and you can get used to it and you get back to your place. But there's always people, when you can't see, that are helping you. So
awesome. So you've kind of felt more on this whole, like, I'm a character, and I know it's very easy to then take on this life because you are sort of hidden. It's almost like your costume turns you into what you're being. You feel it. How does it feel to now be thought of as doing roles like when you worked in a live production as you, and there's no armor? How does that feel for you now?
Oh man. I have butterflies in my stomach. I am nervous. We literally yesterday with Amanda over Zoom, we had our very first script read through for her brand new indie film. And yeah, I was needing to do deep breathing exercises beforehand. And, I know the character, she really did such an amazing job of writing this character and asking me to embody this character, who very much, she's like, you are tenacious like she is, but you don't live it on the outside like this character does. So it's not a stretch for me, but it's just going to be this acting exercise and really being believable. And, had to tell myself that this character isn't nervous in these moments. So calm down and just be. But yeah, it's pretty overwhelming because, like you said, I bring characters to life and I breathe life into them, but you don't see me. So in a way, that is an armor. This is very exposing. So
yeah. Well, I got to tell you, you could sign me up to play any part, and I'm not an actor, which may be why I'm saying this. But you can sign me up to play any part in any movie ever, but you do something I could never do, and that is sing in front of people. And so it's funny for me to hear you say that, standing up and reciting lines and playing a part is kind of intimidating when you are willing to stand in front of people and sing. That to me is the most frightening and horrifying thing I can think of.
Yeah. Again, it's one of those things that I think you just know was meant for you. I have always been drawn to music. My family, my parents, we were raised on singers, and like Johnny Mathis, actually, that's their favorite singer. That's where I got my name, Misty. And I can remember even as a little kid, just, we lived up in the mountains. And so our commutes down to the nearest town, which is San Juan Capistrano or Lake Elsinore to the east, they were at least 20, 25, 30-minute rides, and there's no radio signal that you can get in there. So we listened to their cassette tapes, and, it was Johnny Mathis and the Righteous Brothers and Neil Diamond and Frank Sinatra. But I remember just even as a kid singing these really dramatic songs with Johnny Mathis, like love song, and just like feeling his emotion. And then later in life, actually discovered that part of my family, that my dad actually broke off from due to a divorce. They are here in East LA, and they are all musicians. So it kind of made more sense that that is a part of my heart and my spirit, and something that I've never, let go of. And then when the opportunity arises to work with music producers and record my music, but with that means training with the vocal coach every single week, and taking songwriting courses and stuff. Yeah, it's been quite a journey. And I don't know, there's something about, you find deeper within you your courage when it's something that you can feel it, that you really love, that is worth going to. I mean, I've talked about it a lot. I was born with a hearing loss in my right ear. I have a 65% in my right ear loss of hearing, and then 45 in my left. And the day of my cold read audition for Kuiil, I had a doctor's appointment with my hearing doctor, and it didn't go well. And the hearing aid and the left ear, which is my better ear that I rely on, couldn't put my hearing aid in. I'm freaking out. I called my agents, like, I really want to go to this audition so much, but I can't hear at all. I'm extremely hearing impaired today. And I was like, this is a cold read. I need to be able to hear who I'm reading with. And I was like, I can read lips really well, but that's not what I want to do for this moment, because it's going to pull me out of what we're trying to, emote together. And she's like, you know what, I really think you should go to the audition. It's like, I really want to go to the audition. And she's just calm and collected, and it's like, just, politely ask them to speak up if you need to. So again, there are some things in life that you just know you have to do, and that was one of them. So
wow. So on one of your most difficult days,
yes,
you go in and read for a part in the Star Wars universe.
Yes.
And nail it.
Yeah.
I mean, that is really incredible. I mean, just to think about that, like on one of your, like a day when you are just totally flummoxed and thinking this is going to be a disaster, you go in and just nail it and get that part. That is really amazing.
I was really proud. I was really proud of one showing up, uncomfortable. It's just not, it's hard enough when I have both of my hearing aids in to hear all the time. But when you take one of them away, I was like nervous, and then nervous on top of that. So she's like, calm down. And I asked if I could come in early, and they said, yes, of course. And they didn't know why. But I just wanted to be able to sit with the scene as long as I could, so that I could really be able to feel it out and know it as well as I could before I went in, with Seraphin. So, yeah.
All right. For our listeners, most of them, I think at some point have an appreciation, if not a love, for Star Wars and the universe, but they may not know what goes behind the scenes and all of the takes, the rehearsals. You kind of touched on a little bit of it. Take us initially through that first read through. Did you have a callback? Did you get the call right away? Did they offer it? I mean, take us through the steps. When did you go from the audition to here's the part?
Oh my goodness. Was a good, let me think, probably a month of, waiting. And I was like, do they need to be come back in? I will come back in, and my ears are much better now. But they're like, no, they're just, trying to figure everything out. So yeah, it was about a month, and then my agent did receive my deal memo. And then from that, it was immediately into fittings with legacy effects, because Kuiil is a complicated head. Usually with my animatronic heads, my whole face is covered, but with him, my eyes were exposed. So the way that they built it, I mean, I don't know how they did it. It must have been incredibly challenging because it fit, super, super tight to my face in order for the skin, which is made of silicone, to blend with my skin. And they did their very best, thank goodness, to blend it well so they wouldn't have to glue me in around my eyes.
So you get the parts. About a month later, you start going for some fittings. But let's talk about then the rehearsal of being able to work with the team of animatronic operators, puppeteers on the set, the movement before cameras even roll.
That's the thing. They didn't have time to do that. I went into Legacy for one of my fittings, and I stayed after with my team, and we just sat in the makeup room and just put the head on. The head's it's connected to obviously the backpack and the vest that he wears, and we only had one scene, because with Star Wars, because of its popularity and the love for it and everything, they're very protective of what they give you. It's not, we didn't have scripts or anything. Like, we had one scene. It was like our first scene that we were going to do. So we just kind of went over that a few times. And then it was screen test day and throw everything on. They kind of got a feel for what I was going to do, what we were going to do, and they seemed to like it. And then it's day one of shooting. So again, heart palpitations. It's like, so it's just like they cast who they knew that, would just be able to go in and do the job well. And that's that. So
how many, with season 1, how many total days did you have working on the set of Mandalorian as Kuiil?
It's quite a few weeks, but fortunately production, they would always make sure that I had weekends off. Like, we would shoot some of the really intense scenes, like the chase back to the Razor Crest was a really hard day for me. And so we did that on a Friday. So it gave me a couple of days to kind of recover before the next shoot day. But we began October 1st and shot all the way up until Christmas. We got a little Christmas break, and I came back and I was done in February. But it's kind of sporadic. It's not, every
still
day.
Over the course of about 4 months.
Yeah. So.
All right. So I know technology allows directors and stuff to be able to sort of see maybe what the set's going to look like, a lot of pre-visualization. But when did you, the performer, get a chance to finally see what your character actually looked like when all of the rendering, all of the background, everything was done?
The premiere of The Mandalorian at the El Capitan. So.
Wow. So you had no preview of it ahead of time? You really didn't get a chance to see how it was going to all meld together until they actually aired it?
Nope. That was the night, and I was excited and nervous, and because Star Wars is huge. It's the first project I've been on that has such a tremendous fan base and following. And, I did have a freak out moment of, oh man, I hope, people resonate with Kuiil. And, there's nothing that I could do at that point. So it's like, calm down. It's like, you gave him every bit of your heart and your soul and, blood, sweat, and tears and work. So, I was like, just send that message out there that, I hope you really enjoy it, because I did.
Well, and it had to be kind of interesting because with that character up against a character that's in a complete other costume where his face is completely covered, you cannot see his emotions. and you have to act against that, I guess, or I don't know how that was set up, but his character was really the first one that we saw that had a lot of personality and that we could really relate to. And so when we were introduced to your character, I think for me, like, I was really drawn to him. I really liked that character. I liked how he was kind of no nonsense, but yet he was willing to help. And it's a really cool character, and he fits great in the Star Wars universe. So I love that character from beginning to end.
Wow, thank you so much. That means a lot to me. It's Jon Favreau's writing. He's a brilliant writer, and then of course Nick Nolte's voice and the way that he delivered his lines, just extraordinary. So they made my job really easy.
Well, you got Walt's perspective as a fan. I will echo his as somebody who sat and watched it. But you, in the premiere, when you started to get a sense of what it felt like to see the scene all stitched together in one continuous flow, and hear the crowd around you, what were your thoughts about it? Did you feel, yeah, I nailed it?
I think as an artist, we are always nitpicking our performance. So that is, I will fully admit that's a thing for me. But I was really excited when, the first time he delivers his iconic line, "I have spoken," people started laughing. And then, because they premiered the first 3 episodes at the El Capitan that night. And each time, like, people were loving that. So I was very proud of that part. And one of my best friends who I've trained with, that he's a stuntman, Mark Wagner, he was, with me that night. And it was special because he knows how hard I've worked for so long, to be there. And he's a Star Wars fan too. And then after, they rolled the credits, in the past, as I've always known and understood, you don't get a credit, like your own special credit, just because you're part of an ensemble, you're part of a whole. And I respect that completely. But I remember him like nudging me. He's like, "Oh my God, you got a credit." And I was like, "Oh, wow." So I was really excited. It's like, that was really cool.
Yeah, we interviewed an actor a while back from Blazing Saddles, and they forgot to put his name on the credits.
Oh, no.
So we kind of got a little taste of how important that is and what a big deal it is to see your name there.
It's just that, like, final moment of, I did that. So, and then especially then season 2 came around, and same thing. I thought, I will get that same type of performance artist credit. And it's like, yay. And then I'm sitting, in my living room with my friends watching, and they, freaked out. Amanda was there too. She's like, "Oh my God, you got a credit. You're right behind Amy Sedaris. Oh my goodness." So it's like, what is happening? And then I especially freaked out because I'm a huge Grogu fan, as everybody is, that, chapter 10, no, wait, I always get mixed up. So 8, 9, 10, chapter 11, they put my credit with him, obviously the concept art, which is my friend Christian Altsman, of him eating his soup or whatever. And so that to me was just like everything. It's like, it's Grogu, and that's my legacy team, and that's my name, and okay, my life is made.
So I know you, obviously Amanda helped push you, and you're going to be in a film that she's doing, but has being involved at the level of this Disney Plus Star Wars to the small screen, but most people have big screen TVs today. I argue it's not really small screen just because it's in your house. A lot of people have surround sound, home theaters. Has it opened doors for you within that world? Have you gotten more interest in saying, we want, you're already comfortable with this world, we want to use you?
For me, this project with Amanda coming up literally this Sunday is when they begin shooting. This is like another big moment, an important moment for me to have more than 2 lines. So, and again, she's so talented as a writer. I can't wait for people to see this film. It's a very important subject matter for everybody right now. And it has so much heart. And yeah, there is drama in it, but there's also comedy. And this moment, this is the next one for me, because I tend to be one of those artists that, okay, I've done that, tentatively sometimes. And I will say this is one of those moments of, knowing that my trajectory and where I want to go next and try something, keep trying things that are out of my comfort zone. And this one, I've had moments where I felt very out of it, but it's just like, show up and be prepared and just do your work and trust your training. I have trained for years as an actor and trust myself. Sometimes I have a hard time doing that. So,
well, and the other thing is sometimes you got to trust the director. You got to you assume the director's keeping the overall big vision. You may not know why you're doing something a certain way, but they see the big picture.
Yeah. We did a table read yesterday morning, and then the male lead and myself, we met up with Amanda later in the evening to do some training and a walkthrough of one of the sets that we live in a lot. And we sat with her and, we went through all of our scenes and stuff. And she gave us, our little subtle notes that are just about kind of at this point finessing, what you're doing and maybe giving it a different read or a different tone. So, I was excited about that too, because it is this process with creatives together, creating something that we really hope will shed some light and move people. So
my background doesn't hit anything as big as what you've already done, but I can tell you, being involved in whether it's theater or independent films or shorts, when you have that sense of we're all working together and you can all have that synergy, I always have found those have been the best sets. When there's always somebody who's got an attitude or thinks they already know everything, those are the ones that have the problems. So I've always tried to say that's the approach. You can always learn something, even from I've worked with people who this is their first thing they've ever done. And I watch how natural they'll come across and go, I worked for like years to get to what you're doing, like day one. So you can always learn something.
Absolutely. And that I really do feel, because everybody involved in this project, and it's an independent film. We're in it because we really love the craft, and we just, we're grateful to be a part of it. And so it does feel that way. People have already been rehearsing and training to bring, the very best that they can to this project. So
now, when I went back and looking at what we talked about with Amanda, I know she couldn't reveal, and I'm not asking you to either, because she said that things were stuck. There were still a few things that contractually hadn't been locked down. But will this be something we can see in 2022? Is that the plan, at least as far as you know?
I believe so. Yeah. Because we are the first day of shooting is this Sunday. And it's like I keep telling her to repeat this mantra, which is from Abraham Hicks, is like, I love how everything is always working out for me. It was like, keep saying it. So, because we want everything to, run smoothly. Obviously, as she knows, and I know from both our experiences of really trying for these things that are your personal legends, there's just little hiccups. There's snags, there's bumps in the road. And I was like, just remember, it's just the universe testing you. How bad do you want this? Are you going to stop and turn around? It's like, no. So just repeat after me. I love how everything is always working out for me.
So is this going to be as far as you know, and maybe we'll have to ask Amanda, is this a direct to stream? Will it be on one of like the Netflix, Amazon? Do you know, or can you not say?
Just for safety, that's probably a question for Amanda.
Okay.
It's her film.
we need to keep tabs on her, and as it gets closer and she's ready to start doing some promotion, we definitely want to bring her back to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh gosh,
that is so cool. Now, as far as the Star Wars world, have you had any additional outreach from them about, hey, don't lose your fitness, we're thinking about something else now?
Hopefully, yes. I mean, that's another huge wish for me. It's my biggest wish. It was my birthday wish. So yeah, that's my family. The Mandalorian, I'm so close to them, and I love every second of being on that set. So fingers crossed.
Awesome. Well, I think as we start to wind down the interview piece, Walt, I'm going to echo what he said earlier. There have been a few disappointing Star Wars episodes, or not in the terms of the small screen, but on the big screen, that, as fans that have seen it from the very beginning, you go, maybe not but when Mandalorian hit, the one thing that so many people across the world have said is Star Wars is back. And I think it's a testament to Dave Filoni. It's a testament to Jon Favreau, but to the ensemble atmosphere and crew and everybody working so hard. And you are a huge part of that. The I have spoken is one of those things that's just become a mantra. Like you feel like it's a parent ending a conversation with a kid. I have spoken. That's it. And it's part of now the lexicon of Star Wars. So thank you for bringing that character to life.
Oh, it was my pleasure. I loved every moment of it.
Well, and it has to be kind of cool for you that the rest of your life, you get to say, this is what I did. I got to live in the Star Wars universe, and I got to be a big part of it. I mean, that really has to be something that you can look back on and just say, I can pretty much do anything if I can do that.
Yeah, I have such a tremendous amount of gratitude, for my long, crazy, tumultuous journey that's not been linear at all. And for my music career, I also teach yoga as my karma job on the side. I got to teach my students last Friday. And I will say that my training as a yogi and then going to teacher training for 9 weeks, and I've been teaching my students since 2006. That is a huge part of what I brought to Kuiil. As a teacher, someone that imparts wisdom in the most gentle and compassionate way of not necessarily, saying something and you take it in. You have to physically do it. You have to, when Kuiil's like getting everything set up to help rebuild the Razor Crest, and he's, just frustrated and just standing there is like, it'll help if you help me, just movement. And so yeah, a lot of my yoga students that are friends who's like, I can't come to your class all the time, but do you say I have spoken after? It's like, no. It's like, I don't, but I do.
You should. You should use that all the time. Like ordering lunch, you should say, I'm having a ham sandwich. I have spoken.
They would look at her and go, what the hell's wrong with you?
Yeah. I will say, because teaching, it was one of those moments too of having to dig deep and really believe in what I was doing and have courage. All through teacher training, I was fine. And then came my first day to teach my students, and it's 90 minutes and it's a dialogue that, you say and speak. And I know it sounds crazy, but, ask any petite woman. It's like anytime you put your heels on, those like 2 inches, 3 inches, oh my God, it helps. And, it's like an armor to you. And so in that hot room, I'm barefoot. And, I remember sitting in my car, talking on the phone with my mom, like crying, going, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this. And she's like, okay, you need to take a deep breath. And she's like, why did you do 9 weeks of teacher training? Like hardcore, 10, right. 12, 14 hours a day learning this. It's like, because I know it helps people and I know they'll heal their bodies like I did. And, it just send you on the best journey ever to live your best life. She's like, okay, go in there and teach that. It's like, okay.
Now go do that.
Yeah. So I just like calmed down, and, you know, I had to kind of command that space, you know, and it did that is a huge part of Kuiil, you know, and his I have spoken is understanding on such a broad spectrum. That's what I do with my yoga students is to help them, guide them to help themselves.
So cool. Being able to take your life experiences and then leverage them makes for a much more dynamic and real performance because it is coming from a place of reality.
Yeah. It's it was a gift from my karma job, which is teaching my yoga students. So,
well, for folks who are listening, I've done yoga a lot, and then I stopped for a while. I made fun of it until I did it, and then I realized, holy crap! I have never sweated so much standing in one place in my life.
Yeah, it's.
But I love it. Once you get an understanding of what you're doing, you're right. You kind of get lost almost in the poses. And if you just kind of give to it, yeah, you're not going to have all that flexibility you probably will get later, but it's okay. Just keep with it. It's really, really great.
Yeah, it's a balance of mind, body, spirit. If you happen to be in a class with a teacher, because I'm extremely present with them. Moment to moment to moment. I practice all the time. So I've, over the years, become very aware of, you know, the journey of the postures too, as they build and where people start to fall apart emotionally from frustration, from falling out of postures. The fact that we tend to live in a society where, you know, perfectionism, you know, everybody looks perfect on their social media. It's like, that's not real life. That's a moment. So get in your body. And anytime you start to have your freak out moment, look at yourself in the mirror and find your breath. That is where right here, right now, this is a calm place. You know, yes, you're exerting your physical body, but it's just to help you stay healthy, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. So.
Yeah.
I love it.
Apparently you have no free time between acting and yoga and the 15 other things you do. The one thing that we didn't really get to talk about a whole lot, but I really want you to tell our listeners, you know, at least where they can find your work. Where can they find your music if they're looking for it?
Oh, thank you for bringing that up. Music videos and my songs and lyric videos, they're up on YouTube, iTunes, Apple Music, Spotify, those, and Amazon Music. You know, it's kind of everywhere. Oftentimes, if you just type in my name and then Misty Rosas music, things will pop up.
And what kind of style would you say that you have? It's
in the pop genre, for sure. The style of the song, you know, the songwriting, the story that I tell very much, you know, creates the tempo and the feel of the music and stuff. So I remember it was one of the singles that I wrote called Paper House. And, you know, I wrote it for women, for young girls, you know, because we do struggle a lot with, you know, what we look like. And it's, you know, even for men too, we're bombarded with all of these like pictures and commercials and radio commercials, you know, and it's just about undoing the armor around your heart, you know, as people say things to you and you take that on as if it's your, you know, your identity, and it really isn't. But I just remember working with my music producers on that one, and they tended to build the music too much. It's like, no, break it back down. This message is extremely intimate, and I want people to hear it in the way that I sing it and emote it. So, and I shared that yesterday, especially for Music Monday. There was a piece of it on my Instagram story for Bonnie and Amanda, because these two women are telling an extremely personal and courageous story. So it's like, that's this song, and it's what it's like to record that too, because it was very emotional.
I don't know what I was really expecting when I started listening to your music a couple weeks ago, but I was blown away by how strong your voice is. It is just, you have a tremendous, tremendous voice. And even for a genre of music that I don't normally listen to or go to, it really got my attention. And I listened to quite a few songs over the last couple of weeks, and just I think the intensity and the passion that you bring to your music is, it really brought me in. I mean, it really caught my imagination every time I listen. So I'll be listening to a lot more. I hope other people will too.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm excited. We over the summer, safety first, but I recorded an EP, which is more of a live recording. So I'm excited to share that because it has a different sound, because it was all of us, together in a live setting, front to back, beginning to end in these songs. So where, sometimes in the past, like things get chopped up and you'll like sing a chorus or something, or a verse, where this was just, again, another opportunity to learn something by trying something different, and to improve upon my craft. So as a singer and a songwriter.
That's really cool. So YouTube, Instagram, and then Spotify or anything like that where people can subscribe?
Yeah, I'm on Spotify. Again, just type in my name, Misty Rosas, and I'm up there. All my songs are up there.
Excellent.
And YouTube, again, is a great place because music videos are there, as well as I've posted some lyric videos. As you said, my life is a little bit busy. So I'm, slowly, surely, trying to get up the lyric videos, because my lyrics, obviously are very metaphorical. So it's important for people to be able to see them on the screen. So I promise they'll all be up there soon. So.
That is so cool. And to be multifaceted and have those kind of pursuits, I think just, I say this a lot to the audience and certainly to my own kids. When you find what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. You'll be exhausted, but you're at least enjoying every moment that you're doing it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I always encourage people to listen to your heart and follow your dreams and the pursuits that, aren't about money, because you will feel like the richest person in the world if you are doing the thing that you love, because it fills your heart and your soul with like every bit of like excitement and joy and love. Even when you're, nervous and about to go on set and do something outside your comfort zone, there's still something in you that's like, this is cool and I can do this. And, you just become an even more interesting version of yourself by trying, for that thing, even if it feels like it's a failure. I always tell Amanda and my friend Claire and everybody this, on that journey of those pursuits is like, you're in it, you're in the arena. There's no failing. It may feel like, okay, that wasn't a great moment, but it's like, that is not failure. That's just a moment to learn from. That's it.
Well, you said at the beginning, before we even went live, that you're going to hang out with us for a little bit. So you don't mind kicking back, relaxing? You don't have a yoga class to run to for a bit?
Yeah, no, I will be happy to hang out. And yeah, I don't have anything just yet. In a couple of hours, I do.
We're going to get to our next segment then. And maybe this is going to be highly illustrative of what to watch, not to go for in terms of film, because we have our listeners group and we have our listeners once a week. Walt puts out 3 really, really D-level kind of bad movies that he's going to be forced to watch one of them and review on it. It's a segment we like to call
God, what is this? Stop it! I gotta get me out of this house!
Walt, what did you get to sit back and watch this week?
I don't think "get to" is the right term. Had to. Watch a movie called Indigenous. It is, well, I never know where to start with these things. I'm going to start with a rating. It got a 4.7 out of 10 on IMDb, which is better than most of the garbage I've had to watch this year. And actually, I will tell you, this is one of the more watchable movies that I've had to endure. The summary of it is a group of friends travel to Panama where they convince a local woman to guide them into the jungle. However, when their guide goes missing, they realize that they've stumbled onto the lair of a horrific, bloodthirsty creature. Think of this as kind of like a mixture of the Blair Witch Project, Aliens, and all the 500 movies that talk about how the government just strands people in bad situations and doesn't pull them out of them. It's just a weird mix of crazy stuff. Now, when I say that it's watchable, that's not compared to good movies. That's compared to the other movies that I've been watching this year. This one actually almost had a plot that you could follow from end to end. I almost felt like there was probably a message to it that I just wasn't quite getting. But I think it's because I kept kind of dozing off as I was watching.
That's not a really good endorsement if you're falling asleep.
Well, and I kept rewinding. I think the biggest problem with this movie is that they were shooting for time. And it is like an hour and 26 minutes, and it falls into that, how can we get it on the Sci-Fi Channel kind of thing. So I think that they had their story and they had the stuff, but I think towards the beginning, they ended up going back and putting in some filler.
Okay,
to get to that hour and 26 minutes.
Extend what maybe an
extend
hour
it.
long
They were
script.
not cutting anything. I can tell you they did not cut anything. In fact, I thought they were going to have a lunch break at one point. Just go ahead and film that and throw it in. But there was like a long segment in a bar of them just talking and then dancing and drinking and talking some more. And it was just like mundane stuff that tourists would talk about. So it wasn't anything to do with the plot. They finally did get to the plot towards the end of that scene. There were parts of it that were kind of those 80s spring break movie kind of feel, just so is this
a typical everybody's young and hot and they're all getting picked off one by one?
Yeah,
okay.
pretty much. And the acting was okay. And like I said, it was that Blair Witch feeling. One of the people had a camera with them and they kept dropping it when people would get attacked. And so you had that, and you had one guy just get, basically murdered by this thing on screen. And so, I mean, if you like horror movies, this is okay. I'm not a big horror movie person, but it really is almost a difficult movie to watch because it does have these very long bits of irrelevancy to the whole plot of the movie. And then towards the end, I think they kind of set it up so that they could do an Indigenous 2 if they've, for some reason, hit a home run with this thing. But I'm guessing Sci-Fi's probably not reaching out to get that script yet. There are a couple of decent actors in it. There's a lady in it named Lindsay McKeon, who was in Saved by the Bell, The New Class, What Doesn't Kill You, and Supernatural. So, I mean, there's some decent actors. I just think that the production was so terrible, and the directing probably was not fantastic. But it was, I mean, for what these movies are, this was okay. I think 4.7 may be okay.
I got a question for you, because looking at some of the screenshots, it looks like they had an actor in a bodysuit with maybe some either CGI enhancement or something to give it a long proboscis or some kind of a long probing tongue. So for our guest who may have had to do something like this, was that what it would look like? Is that what this creature was? Was it just a suit and with some additional CGI, or was it animatronic, or what?
There was some CGI to it. The weird thing is they never really explained the tongue. So it was a little bit confusing as to what exactly this thing was, whether it was a person who had gotten out there and gotten in some radioactive material, or just a hybrid of something, or
I mean, it looks like a demonic man suit where it's man-like in terms of 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head, but it's got like pointy teeth and like this tongue.
Yeah. At one point, I was sort of led to believe that it was like a feral human who had ended up out in the thing. And then it became clear that was not the case. Then I thought it was maybe like something that had been sort of zombified, I guess. That apparently is not the case. So we're left kind of not knowing what this was. But I think the tongue just became a device of convenience when they couldn't figure out what else to do. So I don't know. It's
as we bring this to a close, we can say the subtitle or the little tagline under the title was "Evil is out there."
Yeah, but so it's kind of like this. Like if you get attacked by a bear, is that bear evil, or are you just in his habitat?
No, you just stumble across the bear.
Well, I think that's what this was here. This was just something that lived out there and, would normally just eat squirrels and whatever else came across his path. And these idiots came out knowing that they shouldn't be out there because something eats people. And they went out there anyway, and it did what it did. It ate people. So I will defend the creature in this one and say the people got what they deserved.
Welcome to my Wonka world. Everything here is edible. Nom, nom, nom.
Yeah. And the good thing about this is if there is a 2, 90% of the actors from 1 aren't coming back. So they'll be repopulating that set next time. So,
well, and for our guest, I'll ask this question. You got to walk that fine line because you want the work, but sometimes you have to look at the script and go, do I really want this work?
Yeah, for sure. There's been a few things that, like I read a script recently and it just was too dark, too sinister. And I had called my agent, she's like, have a read through the script and let me know what you think. And I called her back. It was like, that's not, and she cut me off. She's like, yeah, I know that's not your vibe. So
I can tell.
It's like, thank you. Yeah. I was like, as an actor, it would be somewhat interesting to, make choices for that. I was like, but I can't go there. So, so she's like, okay, I'll let him know. It's like, thank you.
Yeah.
So.
you might have read for this one and gone, I'm not sure what's going on here. So I may have to pass just for that reason.
All right. Well, let's move on then to our next segment. Walt, you and I like to look around the news areas of the web and find the strange things that you probably don't get on your ride home from work or your nightly news channel. But it's got to be true because we found it online. It's a segment we like to call
It's No Bullshit.
Walt, you have the first story.
Well, this one is as much a news story as it is a public service announcement. This comes from KOB-TV4 in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Woman warns others after being locked inside a porta potty. From Gallup, New Mexico, a woman using a porta potty in Gallup was locked in from the outside. It was Saturday. I went to Gallup to sell at the flea market. I don't go there often, said Laramie Blake. Blake and her mom were feeling hopeful to make some sales, and everything was going fine until she went into one of the porta potties for a quick break. I felt the door tug, the leverage on the porta potties. It shows if it's red or green. And obviously, if it's red, it means that it's locked. She immediately tried to open the door, but couldn't. At first, she thought the door was just jammed. But then she panicked and started yelling for help. A man came up and telling her that there was a lock on the outside of the door.
Like a padlock or something?
Somebody padlocked the door.
Oh, there are a lot of places I don't mind being locked into. That ain't one of them.
Not a porta potty. She was freed using a bolt cutter. New stuff are coming out with sex trafficking and kidnapping and other things. And when I replay everything that happened, I feel that was what was supposed to happen. But luckily, the guy who was there to save me was probably there at the right time, Blake said. She posted about her experience on social media and says she wants people to be aware of their surroundings. I have an 8-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old boy. And, just the thought of me living my life without them hurts, Blake said. A report was filed with the sheriff's department. Blake is hoping someone might have seen what happened and will come forward.
It's no bullshit.
Well, that is truly finding yourself in a shitty situation.
No doubt about that. Now, I could see doing that to a friend of mine.
Going, come on, that's too easy. Yes, we're dumb here.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Well, she wasn't going anywhere.
Well, I can see locking a friend in one.
So this is one where you want to find out. I need you to probably review it sometime just to really, throw shade at me. But I did a full-length independent feature called Shrimp Crawl, and we literally had a scene where I was trapped inside a porta potty, and the guy was trying to get me out, and he started ramming these steel rods through it and like trying to stab me in it, and eventually decided to back up a septic truck and put it in reverse and literally flush me out with goop. And that was a fun day of shooting.
Why haven't I reviewed this movie yet?
It's available on Amazon Prime. Right. You might want to eat some of your gummies and then you'll be like, oh, I kind of get it now. With that, let's go ahead and, I hate we're doing this in our own backyard, but yes, we're going to hit the Chattahoochee River in Georgia.
Oh, boy.
According to the news, you might think decapitating goats as part of a religious ritual is something that only happens in horror movies. Well, that's true. But then in Georgia, it also means that you might be just part of a local religious sect. Yes. Locals living by the Chattahoochee River, which runs through Georgia, made a gruesome discovery in the end of August. On top of the usual varieties of aquatic life, a new animal appeared, a headless goat. Not just one, 30. Jason Ulseth with the environmental group Chattahoochee Riverkeeper told Channel 2 Action News that the goats were found near the I-20 bridge crossing the river. So what exactly is going on in Georgia? Has a satanic goat sacrificing cult taken root? Not quite. That said, the main suspect is an unconventional religious group. Although there are no official police investigations ongoing, most people are pointing their finger on a local community practicing Santeria. It's a syncretic religion that arose in Cuba in the late 19th century, mixing elements of Roman Catholicism, Spiritism, and the West African Yoruba religion. Santeria is a ritualistic-oriented religion, meaning that the proper execution of rituals is more important to its practitioners than faith in a rigid dogma. So one of the things they do is sacrifice animals. Back behind this, they said, why would you do this? A priest with this group told Channel 2 that the sacrifice of, let's say, a male goat is done to celebrate a victory and thank whatever, I guess, gods out there for your victory. Whereas if you did this to a female goat, it could be because you're wishing for children. So, yep, in modern Hotlanta, Georgia, you can still have groups out there who feel like the way to make their wishes come true is decapitate a goat and throw it in the river. Now they're saying, hey, the religious aspect, it's okay. Don't throw the carcasses in the river. We use that for drinking water for about 5 million people. Let's try to keep that out of the river. Thank you very much.
It's no bullshit.
Oh, my goodness. Well,
top that, buddy.
I'm not going to try to top that. However, I'm going to try to change the subject.
Good.
Woman faces felony charges for forgetting to return Sabrina the Teenage Witch VHS tape 20 years ago.
Wait a minute. I was going to say, when you said VHS, The Blockbusters have been closed for a while.
Well, that's going to play in here.
Okay.
And I actually saw this on allthat'sinteresting.com and I thought, this can't be right. So I found the same story on newsweek.com.
Wow.
So this originated with Newsweek, which Newsweek is a reputable news organization. So I'm going with it.
All right.
A woman in Texas received a nasty shock when trying to update her married name. She was a criminal for a crime she didn't even remember committing. Surprise! In fact, she was guilty of a crime most people of a certain age have probably committed. 20 years ago, she forgot to return a VHS tape. Karen McBride, 52, made a discovery during her trip to the DMV. The former Oklahoma resident had moved to Texas and gotten married and needed to update her information. I went to change my driver's license during the COVID thing. You had to make an appointment, she said. They told me that I had an issue in Oklahoma. She was mystified.
Ma'am, you got a problem in Oklahoma you're going to have to resolve.
I should have done that with the voices. She called the number that DMV had provided and was connected with the Cleveland County District Attorney's Office. During the conversation, McBride was floored to learn that she was a wanted felon.
A felon for a videotape.
She told me it was over the VHS tape that I had and that I had to make her repeat it because I thought this is insane. The girl is kidding me, right? She wasn't kidding. In 1999, someone had rented a copy of Sabrina the Teenage Witch in McBride's name from an Oklahoma video store called Movie Place. When no one returns the VHS cassette, charges were filed. According to court documents, McBride was charged in March of 2000 for felony embezzlement of rented property. The charges stated that McBride did willfully, unlawfully, and feloniously embezzle a certain one video cassette tape titled Sabrina the Teenage Witch with a value of $58.59. I have never watched that show in my entire life. Just not my cup of tea, McBride said. Meanwhile, I'm a wanted felon for a VHS tape. She added, I mean, I didn't try to deceive anyone over Sabrina the Teenage Witch, I swear. As she was absorbing the news, it dawned on her how such a thing could have happened. In 1999, she had a roommate. I had lived with a young man that was over 20, and that was over 20 years ago, McBride explained. He had 2 kids, daughters that were 8 and 10, and I'm thinking he went and got it and didn't take it back or something.
My God.
In fact, the more she thought about it, the more other parts of her life seemed to suddenly make sense. Since 99, she has been fired from a handful of jobs. Her employers had never given her a reason. Now she thinks that her criminal background check is why.
Oh my God.
When they ran my criminal background check, they're all seeing in these 2 words, all they're seeing is these 2 words, felony embezzlement, McBride said. Fortunately, it seems that McBride won't be a felon for very much longer. The Cleveland County DA's office announced that they would dismiss the case against her. However, McBride will still need legal intervention to have the felony charges cleared from her record.
It's no bullshit.
That is ridiculous. I was just double checking my memory of what embezzlement as a charge, a legal charge actually is. I don't know how that even works because you can't embezzle something unless you're part of an organization that you are entrusted with the money. Like if you're the office manager or a bookkeeper or an accountant and you're taking money from the company and hiding it and putting it, stealing it. You're basically stealing from the company you work for.
Yes.
When you don't return a videotape, it'd be like saying embezzling if you didn't return a library book. You just forgot the library book.
Right. She should have been charged with theft by conversion, which is also a felony.
Well, it's not even, it doesn't rise to a felony by the dollar amount.
Well, I know, but
embezzlement is because you're entrusted by the company and you're basically, it's a combination of doing something morally wrong by stealing from the people you've been entrusted to keep that money safe. This is just somebody who didn't even realize someone rented a videotape in her name.
Well, I think we can all agree that any of us who ended up on that jury would be like, if she's guilty, I'm guilty.
Yeah. Move along. Nothing to see here. But no, I'd be like, you can go to jail for that.
Right.
I gotta go home for a minute.
Back. I've got a box full of Blockbusters property.
Hold on. I'll be back after lunch.
But they closed. I couldn't give it back.
All right. I've got the last news story. And this one actually, because we're coming close to, I feel like it, we're heading to fall, which means people are starting to think about Halloween decorations. And I started thinking about all of these common superstitions. And I happened to stumble across an article that gave us the root history of 8 common superstitions. So I'll try to go through this quickly. But have we all heard about a black cat crossing your path being bad luck?
I have heard that.
So where did that come from? According to this, it actually goes back initially to the origins in Egypt, where actually cats were thought to be good luck. And in fact, the pharaohs revered the cat. So when did it change? Well, we can thank the Middle Ages, where everything sucked. And according to the Middle Ages, black cats suddenly, with no explanation, got associated with witchcraft. Therefore, if a black cat crossed your path, it was because you were in league with or were being monitored by witches.
Oh, interesting.
There you go. What about knocking on wood? How does that get rid of? You ever do that? You like do something like, oh, hope that doesn't happen. You knock on wood.
I've always heard that scares the ghost away.
Okay, you'll love this. So at least according to this, to keep things bad from happening to you, historians claim that European peoples, probably the Celts and the Vikings, would knock on wood to alert the gods of their impending predicament. Like, oh, we're in trouble. There are other theories, though. One says that the sound of hitting wood was intended to scare away evil spirits.
There you go.
There you go, Walt. Still others claim that the superstition originates from an old habit of touching a crucifix before taking an oath. All in all, it's a bit murky, but it would be cool if Odin suddenly showed up every time you tapped a tree saying, help me. All right. What about the number 13? I never realized this, but unlucky number 13. Do you believe in lucky numbers or unlucky numbers, Walt?
No, not really.
Not you. What about you, Misty?
No.
Like, if your audition shows up on the 13th, you go, hey, can I reschedule that?
No.
Well, for a lot of people, the number 13 is considered unlucky. Why? Well, we can blame some dinner parties for this. The ancient Norse mythology told a tale of a banquet in Valhalla where 12 gods were expected. All 12 showed up. And then the trickster decided to invite himself to the party he wasn't invited to. Loki showed up as the 13th guest. Well, the favored god Balder got killed in an ensuing fight to help kick Loki out. And because he ended up dying in that feast, the 13th guest was the one who brought the bad luck. Well, Christianity built on that belief when you look at the Last Supper, because according to one tale, Jesus's betrayer, Judas Iscariot, was the last and 13th person to show up at the Last Supper. That's where it comes from. What about spilling salt being bad luck? Well, according to this, we'll stick with the Judas tale. A common claim says that the superstition about spilling salt originates from tipping over a salt container at the Last Supper. But in reality, the belief was actually around well before even the first version of the Bible was written. There are records of ancient Sumerians throwing spilled salt over their shoulder 5,500 years ago to nullify bad luck. They said because it's so expensive as a spice that the gods would be mad at you for wasting it. So that's why we toss it over. It comes back from the ancient Sumeria.
Wow.
Crazy. Let me, I said there's 8. I'm going to skip past a couple of these. Opening an umbrella inside. That's kind of a dumb one. This one about a broken mirror bringing 7 years of bad luck. Have you heard that?
Yes.
Growing up with that. Don't break a mirror. It brings you 7 years. Well, why 7 years? According to this, Romans believed people's health and fortunes changed every 7 years. We were on a 7-year cycle. So looking at yourself in a broken mirror would distort your own reflection, which the Romans took as a sign that their next cycle was doomed. So there you go. The Romans gave us the belief that if you look into a cracked mirror, it was reflecting a bad next 7 years of your life. Walking under a ladder. You ever do that? You worry about walking under a ladder? You know, it's propped up and you say, no, you can't walk under an open ladder. Don't walk
under a ladder, but it's because stuff falls on you.
That would maybe be a good modern reason. We go back to the Egyptians on this one. They considered the triangle, hence the pyramids, to be a sacred shape. A ladder left leaning against a wall forms a triangular shape with the wall and the ground. And since the triangle was holy, By going underneath it or walking through it, you would be considered desecrating an object of the gods and bring upon their wrath. Christianity further went with this belief when Jesus himself was taken off the cross with the help of a ladder. And the ladder then became a symbol of either evil or misfortune. And finally, the horseshoe. We've been talking all these unlucky things. You believe in hanging up a lucky horseshoe or having a lucky rabbit's foot? Yeah? Misty's shaking her head, which is great for audio. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, here's where this comes from. We can thank the Greeks. Initially, the belief of horseshoes bringing good luck has its origins in ancient Greece. To Greeks, a horseshoe represented a double whammy of good luck. First of all, it's made of iron, which they believed had the power to hurt and ward off the evil spirits. Secondly, the horseshoe is in the shape of a crescent moon. The Greeks considered the lunar phase to be a symbol of fertility and good fortune. The superstition spread from the Greeks to the Romans and from then to the newly Christianized Europe, and that's why we still consider horseshoes to be lucky to this day.
It's amazing, it's astounding, but it's no bullshit.
So there we are, some useless trivia for you to take to all of your Halloween trivia nights at the local bar or pub, or just to impress your workmates.
Or to depress your workmates.
Or well, you know, I was worried about the whole step on a crack, break your mom's back, but then I realized that just never worked as much as I kept trying.
Your poor mom.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right. We'll move to our final segment, and we can definitely bring Misty in on this because we all like watching things. Hopefully we like reading, and we certainly like listening to things. So it's our entertainment segment. Walt, we'll start with you, so that way the guest doesn't have to be put on the spot. We'll start with just what have you been watching this week? What could you maybe recommend or warn our audience about?
Yeah, actually, this week I must be in a really good mood because I've got nothing but awesome things to talk about. So there's this great movie on Netflix called Wind River. Have you watched that?
Mm-mm.
It's Jeremy Renner is in it, and I think it's one of the best things he's ever been in. And it is
That's saying something.
Yeah, because he's a great actor.
He's awesome.
And he plays a detective, and he's working with an FBI agent who are investigating the kidnappings and murders of American Indian women on the.
I saw this trailer. Yes, that looks
awesome. It's such a great movie, but it's an important movie too, and it is really fantastic. I mean, if you're not going to watch any other movie this week, watch Wind River. For two reasons. The movie is amazing. It's well written. The acting's fantastic. The scenery is just awesome. But also, this is basically a true story. There are tons and tons and tons of women who have gone missing from reservations around the country. And I think this also extends into Canada as well. They never really get investigated, and these women are just gone. And we don't know whether they've been murdered or they've been sex trafficked or whatever, but it is a huge problem that is getting absolutely no press, and it really needs some attention. So this movie, Wind River, really does a great job of exposing what's going on there and reminding us about it. So I would highly recommend that movie. I also watched a documentary on Netflix called If I Leave Here Tomorrow, and it's about the band Lynyrd Skynyrd, and it is tremendous. And I've always been a Lynyrd Skynyrd fan, but there are a couple of parts in it in particular where they talk about the plane crash. That's a pretty moving segment. But then also just some of the stuff like surrounding the rebel flag, the Dixie flag that they have used a lot, and how their opinions on it have changed a lot. So that's definitely worth checking out too, because they're just kind of seen, I think, as a big redneck hillbilly band.
Well, they're Southern Fried Rock.
They're Southern Fried Rock, but they get into some of that too, and you kind of see the humanity of it. But also that band has had some terrible things happen with, 3 members getting killed in the plane crash and some other things like that. A couple guys dying of ODs. So check that out If I Leave Here Tomorrow. And of course, great music. So I've been listening to a lot of Lynyrd Skynyrd this week. Also, I just wanted to point out, I won't really go into discussion about him, but they are starting to pick up a lot of older movies on Netflix. So this month they have Clear and Present Danger, The Outlaw Josie Wales, Midnight Run, and Guns of Navarone, which are all great movies and definitely worth your time to watch. So check those out if you are so inclined.
All right, I'll go next. What I've been watching. We opened with the show talking about this cinematic event. Hopefully, if you're a Rush fan, you had a chance to go see it. If not, they may bring it back again next year. They did it in 2019, had to forego it in 2020, brought it back in 2021 as a director's cut. But Rush Cinema Strangiato was fantastic. Well done. If you're a fan of Rush's music, even if you're a mild fan, it was cool to see one of the final performances of drummer Neil Peart before he passed away. Talking about movies that are older coming to Netflix. My father-in-law is still visiting us, and we dove back into some classic Westerns. We watched Dances with Wolves. I have not seen that movie in probably 15 years. I remember loving it in the theater, loving it when it came out on VHS when I first had it, and it is phenomenal still. It is still a great story, a story of misunderstanding of peoples. And I had a chance today to interview a historian with the Booth Western Art Museum. And when we were talking about it, he said, it may be one of the best movies to really illustrate the humanity of Native American tribes. And that just because they dressed different or had a different sort of religion, you still had husbands and wives trying to raise children. You had children who were still going to get into things. You still had, sarcasm and wit. And they do such a fantastic job of luring you over to understanding not only their life and culture, but then when the soldiers return by the end of the movie, you have realized I am totally against any westward expansion we did and how we did it. And just a great, great movie. And the soundtrack by John Barry, the score is out of this world. I mean, it reminded me a lot of James Bond because he did a lot of James Bond themes, but it was just gorgeous. And you talk about vistas and scenery like from Wind River. Dances with Wolves has some gorgeous cinematography. Also watch Tombstone. That seems to be something we can all agree on in my house. One of the greatest Westerns ever done. And then I will just do a quick shout out to only two of my YouTube channels that I love to catch. Ashley Burton. She's Awkward Ashley. She did a review of Titanic in 2 parts and then Kill Bill Volume 1, which was so fun to watch her go through that. And finally, the Daily Doug, a guy who was with us in season 4. He did a throwback with Metallica's Orion from the Masters of Puppets album. And it was just kind of fun to see our previous guest diving into some instrumental from a metal band. So there we go. That's what I've been watching. Misty, we'll go to you. You've got a busy schedule, but you probably watch some things and and enjoy your streaming. So what would you maybe put out there that you've been watching this week for the audience to say, well, if she's watching it, I want to watch it too.
Right. Yes. Right now, me and my roommates, our big thing is Ted Lasso on Apple TV. Oh my
gosh. I almost mentioned that too. I love that show.
Oh, it's so, because you have to pay attention because their wit and their jokes and like a lot of it is underneath. It's not like this big punchline, funny, haha. It's, and it's just so heartwarming. And it's just, I think it's a very important, story and that everybody needs to kind of see and experience together. I remember, last Friday's episode, it was one of those where it seemed like it was not quite as emotional, but then suddenly it just gets you. Mm-hmm. So I love Ted Lasso. So that was one that I've been watching. I'm a huge Justin Theroux fan. So I rewatched because I'm always fascinated with the types of stories about a journey, The Leftovers. That is an interesting, intense series to watch. And then obviously I had to watch it. I was a little bit hesitant at first because the Bee Gees they're a group that that was my time with my dad. My mom would like to go shopping sometimes. And I wasn't interested in that. And I was, total daddy's girl. And so I would hang out with my dad in the car. He would go park in the shade while she was shopping. We would listen to the Bee Gees together. So I watched I've seen it a couple times, Frank Marshall's documentary, How Can You Mend a Broken Heart? about their story. And I've always respected them, and, you know, I really enjoy their music. But after seeing that documentary, and oh man, I had such a profound respect for them because of, you know, their highs and lows that were happening throughout life, and what happened to them, you know, to be at the very, very peak of your stardom, but to also be experiencing this intense backlash, and that, you know, I forget what baseball stadium it was, where they were burning, like, there's just this whole group that was just hated disco, and they got pulled into that because of Saturday Night Live. And, you know, and as an artist, I just appreciated how after that happened, you know, and I mean, they were at the height of their career and success and stuff. They pulled back, they pulled way out of it, and then just started writing songs for other artists, and always kept, you know, reinventing themselves. And so I was super impressed with that. And then I just remember just like obviously bawling because, you know, Barry is the last BG here. And he's like, you know, I know Frank had asked him, like, of all of it, you know, what was the most important part? He's like, I would trade all of this to have my brothers back. But also, too, at the end of the day, after everything they experienced, the songwriting is what they were most proud of. And I was just like, oh my God. So it's like, just, you know, write songs. So that's what I've been watching. What I've been listening to because of that is Foo Fighters, the DG's Hail Satin album, which is their, you know, homage to the Bee Gees. Like, they've recorded their songs. So like, I'm kind of listening to them, and I'm listening to the Bee Gees. I like Bon Iver. And then obviously I've been listening to my songs a lot to, you know, continue. We're in the mastering process right now. And what I've been reading is I like to, again, revisit books, you know, especially when I'm about to do a big project, I always revisit The Alchemist, The Four Agreements, and I'm anxiously awaiting Brené Brown's book, Atlas of the Heart. So
excellent. You just jumped and ran through all the categories, which is, I wasn't going to slow you down because she has spoken.
Well, someone else recommended The Alchemist not too long ago.
Yes.
I can't remember who else told us how great that is.
I put all of this in our show notes. So yeah, you can go back and look and see one of our other guests had mentioned.
I guess I'll have to pick that up at some point.
Thinking, wasn't it the retired Karen Minton?
Oh, yes.
The meteorologist from Channel 2. Yeah. All right. I think that's who it was.
I think you're right.
So let's go and catch up with Misty now, who just raced to the finish line and like a jackrabbit, took off and bam. Walt, what have you been reading, if anything?
I'm still working on Richard Reddy's book, Don't Make Me Pull Over, the history of the American road trip. And I'm just dying laughing through that whole thing. So I'm hoping to finish that at some point, but I just don't have a whole lot of reading time lately. But that's the main one I'm working on.
I've been kind of stuck in the what's going on with a lot of the current events with my talk job, my talk radio.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm trying to stay on top of it. That's the problem. There's so much information, and every source you go to gives you a piece, but it doesn't give you everything. And so you got to go read and read and read, and then go find out why everybody is saying, well, no, don't read that because that's wrong. And they go, no, don't read that because that's wrong. And like, geez, I feel like a split personality sometimes. I don't know what's right, what's up, what's down, what's left, what's right, but you got to just read it all if you're ready to talk about it. So yeah, I've been pretty busy. Plus, I've been on a video project for our community, and I've been doing a lot of history reading of our community because we just got done shooting a video for the downtown county seat and for the lake that is used for a lot of recreation. And so trying to figure out like how many campsites and how many places can you go to and all the stuff about tourism and stuff. So that's been a lot of my reading of late.
Yeah, that's a lot.
All right, let's go to listening. Walt, we'll go to you first as we start to wind down. What have you been listening to?
So a couple things that we've talked about before. Team Never Quit with Marcus and Morgan Luttrell. Just awesome.
Ex-Navy SEALs.
Yeah, ex-Navy SEALs. And I noticed that the episode I have not listened to that just dropped is a firefighter talking about 9/11 and just how intense that was and all that. So I'm really looking forward to hearing that. But so much of their stuff is just, here's a person who was in a terrible situation. Here's how they got through it. And it helps my perspective a lot. Also, I noticed that Mark Maron just interviewed Steve Buscemi. Steve Buscemi's always been one of my favorite actors. And so I definitely am going to be checking that out probably tonight on the way home. And then our listeners know my dad is a retired FBI agent. And so he kind of hangs around all these other crazy law enforcement people. So every Friday night, we've been getting together with my dad, a former Detroit cop, and a Secret Service agent. And
why are you not recording these?
I should be. I really need to just put a mic in the middle of the table. Of course, the editing on that would be.
Well, we can just make it a not safe for work.
Yeah, but I do know now a lot about the mafia that I never knew before. But they got to talking about the podcast that we've talked about before, In the Red Clay. And
yes, about the Dixie Mafia.
The Dixie Mafia, yeah. And it's Billy Sunday Birt, B-I-R-T, is the main character in this thing. I mean, it's a true story. But when you hear somebody in the profession say, wow, this podcast really blew me away, they got on this topic and were on it for about 20 minutes the other night, talking about how good this podcast is. So I just wanted to bring it back up. I thought it was an excellent podcast as well. As a investigator myself, I can kind of sometimes get a little irritated with these true crime things, but they really do a fantastic job. I think it's Wondery that put this one out, but it's In the Red Clay. It's on every podcatcher that you can find. I think it's 9 episodes or something. But the son of Billy Sunday Birt, the stepson or son, runs a kind of a moonshine distillery here in Georgia. And some friends of mine met him a few weeks ago, and they said that he is just a character, told some great stories and stuff like that. So he is interviewed extensively in that podcast. So check that out. Again, it's In the Red Clay.
Excellent. Well, I'll get to what am I listening to as we start to wrap up. Rush, obviously big because of this week, having a chance to talk about it. I went back and re-listened to Moving Pictures, Hold Your Fire, and Hemispheres. Those last two had just had anniversaries of having just been released on this date in early September. If you're fans of our page and you're not part of our listeners group, perfect time to go join it, because I put those out there so that way everybody would know, hey, did you know today was the day Hold Your Fire came out in 19 whatever, or this is the day Hemispheres came out. So I also listened to the Great Escape Minute podcast where they're breaking down the movie, the World War II classic, Steve McQueen and others, ensemble cast of The Great Escape. Obviously, Radio Labyrinth, always a weekly shout out to that Gen Xer-based cultural podcast. And my buddies across the pond, 60MW. Once again, a movie and music and culture kind of podcast. They stay away from politics, but they don't stay away from naughty words. So be careful. But 60MW podcast. And a project that I'm going to talk about here because I'm kind of listening. I'm also kind of doing it behind the scenes. I was hired by a author who actually, his day job is he is a detective for the Cobb County Police Department, but by night has written a series of loosely based off of the world of Sherlock Holmes. But if you imagine the story Babe, where the pig and the farmer, they can both communicate and they both live in the same world. So there's animals and people all living in the same world. And he is an amateur detective who has a buddy who is a sheep, who is like his Watson. It is called Pig Newton and UN McGregor in these different stories. And I am doing the audio version of these stories.
Nice.
And it's been fun to create all of these wacky sounding, weird, almost cartoonish like characters, but they're not for kids. They're for adults because, you know, they're drinking scotch, they're going to the bar, they're getting involved with bad people doing and breaking, you know, the law. But it's been so much fun to do an audio book, but it's almost like radio theater, bringing these characters to life, adding then some sound effects and some other things and some music just to kind of bring it to life. So that's what I've been working on. When he decides to release them somewhere, I'll let everybody know. How about that?
Awesome.
That's cool.
Misty, have you ever had a chance to do anything like that with your voice? Has anybody asked you to do any kind of voiceover or anything like that?
Not yet, but honestly, that's a dream of mine to, hopefully, like it is a thing. Like I don't know how to navigate it, but I'd love to be a Disney character that sings. So
there you go.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, it is so much fun. There is something liberating about performing behind a microphone, do all the takes you want and go, I like that one the best. And now I can move on and not have to worry about getting dressed, not have to go anywhere. You can just record.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Play.
So, all right. Well, we are rapidly running out of time. We're going to wind this down. Before we tell everybody about how to learn a little bit more about us, if they stumbled across this episode because of our guest, it is always our pleasure to ask the guest to go first. Misty, thank you so much for being here. If somebody wants to learn a little bit more about you, once again, tell them how they can learn about your music, where you might be in your next movie, or how they can maybe even follow you on social media.
Yeah, sure. Thank you again for having me. I've had a blast talking to both of you. Music, you can listen as well as watch music videos and also get familiar with my lyrics on YouTube. Just type in my name, Misty Rosas, and you'll find me. Obviously, I've heard from people that I love Instagram the most, so I'm on Instagram at Miss Misty Rosas, as well as like that is my name, obviously throughout on Facebook and Twitter. And yeah, I think that's it. Obviously, you can buy my music if you would like to on iTunes, Amazon Music. I am also on Spotify. So
excellent. Misty, it has been such a pleasure. Before we say goodbye, Walt, let's let everybody know a little bit more about us if they are stumbling across our show for the very first time. We do have a listeners group. We do have social media ourselves. How do people start to engage with us?
Well, you mentioned our listeners group. What you need to do is go to facebook.com/thewilderride and follow us there. And then a button's going to pop up to let you join our listeners group. All you got to do is hit that button and then answer 3 questions just to let us know that you're human, and we will let you in. And as we mentioned, there's no politics, nothing like that. It's just entertainment and fun and some discussion about movies and stuff going on with our
anything
podcast,
entertainment.
And things like that.
Yes.
Yep. So just a good kind of break from the daily craziness. You can also go to our website, thewilderride.com, and check us out there. We have a list of all our current guests, past past episodes. You can find our breakdown of Young Frankenstein and The Great Blazing Saddles, our 1 minute at a time breakdown of those 2 movies from our first 2 seasons, and then our guests the last 2 seasons. So check us out there. Again, The Wilder Ride. We're also on Instagram. You can find Alan and I on Twitter and other assorted places. And we do our best to engage you. If you send us a note and it takes us a few minutes to get back to you, just be patient with us. We've got at least 2 or 3 other jobs going on all the time. So,
no, but we both love all of our listeners when even if they stumble across something we did 4 years ago and they want to talk about it. Sure, we can talk about it. That's awesome. We love it. And we certainly would encourage you to engage. If you are a listener of podcasts, whether it's this or any other, take a second to rate and review. And certainly it's easy to hit the share button on your podcatcher of choice. Help us grow our audience by letting everybody know who you've been listening to or what you've been listening to. And same thing with YouTube. Make sure you go over to Misty's channel and subscribe. That builds the algorithm for her. When you like the music, you hit the thumbs up, the share. All of that helps build audience, and you're doing it. It doesn't cost you anything. So why not do it for free? Help us out. We're bringing you all this content for free. You can give us a quick thumbs up, right? How hard is that? And I want to say before, again, Misty, it has been such a pleasure to have you with us in studios. Great. You've been smiling nonstop. It is infectious. I'm over here going, I feel energized with your zen coming through the screen.
Thank you so much.
We've loved having you. Thank you. We really appreciate it.
I had such a great time talking with you and laughing and telling stories. So thank you for the opportunity. I really
while you continue to strike it big, we'll stay in touch and continue to bring you back in further seasons to see where you're going.
For sure. You'll have to have both Amanda and myself on a podcast. That would be fun. So.
We could do that when everything is in the clear and we can announce everything. Yes, we'll have a dual cast. That would be awesome.
That'd be super fun. So I'm looking forward to that.
And folks, come on back next week. We've got another guest lined up. I think we do. I think we got a couple of cops from Jersey who also moonlight as podcasters talking about the world of Rocky. They're coming back. We had them last year. We had such a good time with them. We're going to bring them back again. We're going to have Jason and Doug from the Rocky Minute joining us next week. But to learn what they're going to bring to the show or whatever else we're going to talk about, you got to come back next week for another edition of the Wilder Ride Listeners Lounge. Misty, that was so great. Thank you for taking 2 hours of your afternoon. You could be enjoying the sun or grabbing a beverage or sleeping, and you hung out with us. So
really, literally doing anything else.
Oh, no.
But thank you so much. That was just great.
Of course. You're welcome. Thank you again for having me. It was really fun. So, yeah.
Well, I have got to go to get ready for dinner over here on the East Coast. You enjoy the rest of your day and break a leg Sunday.
I can't wait to hear about it.
So awesome.
Yes. Yeah, please send Amanda some good vibes, even right now. Like, she's just, as you know, knee deep in all of the